Does it sometimes seem that there's a portion of comic creators that are just real scumbags in their personal life? Well, it's because there are. Let's talk about them. Hey, this is going to be a tough video to really kind of wrap your head around because I'm going to try and do this in a way. This isn't if you're looking for videos that are going to go after specific individuals and just grind that axe to death for 5 hours, and there's a lot of other channels I can point you to. This is more the question I had posed at the beginning of it sometimes seems, and forget social media for a minute, forget Twitter and kind of various little dramas that play out there, and just go to kind of the percentage. I want you to think like an accountant. You're going to take the emotion out of it and you're going to put on your accountant hat. We're going to make pie charts. And what we're going to do is we're just going to say, of the people working in comics, how many of them are, you know, accused of sexual harassment, have done kind of gross things in comic stores, have abused their power in the company they work for, have been involved in kind of one scheme or another, gotten drunk at a con and had to be reprimanded. I mean, there's kind of the various kind of cycle of bad behavior, and there's different degrees. By the way, there's massive different degrees. And then say, well, how does this stack up to other industries? Is this, are there more here, less here? Like how because it feels like if you're just kind of taking the emotion out of it and just reading kind of the rap sheet, if you will, of complaints and penalties and other things that have happened, you may come to the conclusion that the comic industry seems to have a larger than normal share of people who conduct themselves very poorly, that get engaged in bad behavior. And the answer is that the comic industry does have a higher percentage of those folks. There is more of that behavior that takes on. And I guess I'll take it one step further. Creative industries, publishing, media, acting, kind of those industries have a higher percentage of people that kind of flame out and do odd things. And I'm using the words kind of flippantly. I don't like it when I say do odd things. I mean, sometimes they're odd, introverted, weird things, and sometimes it's horrifying things like the kind of stuff that Eric has gotten involved in, and it just there's a lot of different behaviors out there. So why is it? Why does creative industries kind of draw this kind of behavior? Well, I think there's a fundamental psychological thing that goes on where you have somebody who's creative by nature, who's inventing, who's a writer, an artist, whatever. They're creative. And then I think these people kind of by the numbers, by the book, are not meant to be public figures. They're oftentimes introvert type personalities, and they're not designed as humans to go out and do a lot of public facing things. They're designed to kind of craft their worlds in somewhat isolation. And yet, if you're popular or successful in these in your field, you're going to get thrust into what feels like very abnormal situations. So things like science fiction comic conventions, basically the con. If you've ever gone to a con and you've seen kind of the actors, writers, kind of all there in front of you, it's put it this way. A guy that I've worked with and known for a very long time, he would remark, "Wow, that writer was really normal." And I remember him saying that, and it struck with me because it's more the exception to the rule that these people are normal. And again, I want to stress, there's just being kind of odd and awkward, and then there's kind of getting involved in weird kind of rage attacks and kind of everything from sexual harassment to much worse. Those are not all the same. And at no point in anything I'm saying is that these things are equal. They're not. But I am lumping in kind of odd behavior. There's just, again, these people are not designed to go out and do big public facing things. And I actually think that one of the guys who does it very well and gets beat up all the time is Tom King. And I point to him specifically of, if you've been to a con, you've seen this guy. I mean, he has a lot of things going on. I think he's mentioned that has struggled with PTSD and kind of these other things in his life. But he's articulate. He presents well. He comes across as a normal kind of human being. And then you have other kind of people on that spectrum. And I'm saying these are people I like. I like Peter David. I think Peter David's a nice guy. He's well, I don't know about nice, but he's a very intelligent guy. He, good writer and everything else. But there's no denying, if you've been to a con, that there's some weird things going on there with him. Matt Fraction is another one who's kind of legendary of just being very odd. Nice guy, good to hang with. Those can all be fine, but there's some weird quirks there, and it's kind of this balance between, you've got a naturally introverted personality, you've got some ego that comes into play. We'll get more to that in a minute. You get thrust into a situation with a lot of public attention and those kinds of things, and you're not really ready or attuned to deal with any of that. And then you mix all those together and you get weird results. And I think on top of that, you get a lot of people who kind of were, I mean, human beings in particular, they don't do well when they're kind of built for one environment and then they get force slammed into another. And an example of this is, if pop culture and comic culture is, quote unquote, nerdier, and it's not, it's more awkward, in particular in dealing with the opposite sex, or at least the opposite sex for your preference of a person, then you've got two things kind of slamming together there. You have interacting with if you're a man, if you're interacting with women and how you're capable of doing that, and you've got that coming into conflict with being an introverted personality. So that's where you get the Eric Esquivels and some of the others, where you have behavior that is really unacceptable in a lot of cases, but there is not the training, the mentorship, the packaging around the person to prevent these kinds of behaviors. And I'll take it one step further. Why things go awry is because because all these people are typically dispersed. They don't all work together in one office. A lot of it's remote work. Their human interaction often is kind of what I would call tangential to their job. So what I mean by that is, if you are, say, a construction worker, and you're building buildings every day. So you're going out with your crew and you're building buildings. You're with your crew. You're working with your coworkers. You show up to a place and you are immersed in, with other people who work like you. But now let's say you're an architect of some kind, and you work remote. So you never go to the job site. You never actually see the product. You don't see real life human interaction with people who are doing the same job as you. Instead, your day-to-day human reaction is with people who are not in your field. They're maybe friends, or maybe people that are kind of hang out with. They may be contacts, all kinds of different things, but they're not your, they're unrelated to your job. So a schism kind of starts to occur there in your mind, your life. And that's what a lot of comic stuff. And then every now and then you have the cons, and you inject this kind of almost mega celebrity handling, and there's no boss, there's no mentor, there's no senior person going, hey, here's how you want to handle this situation, here's how we're going to do it, here's kind of some coaching of how to react to it. None of that. You're just kind of thrown into the mix, and good luck. And some people can handle that well, and other people get too drunk at a con and decide they're going to get handsy with a female counterpart, and trouble occurs. And again, I'm saying all these things, and maybe this is my own. I don't like the words that are coming out of my mouth a little bit around that. Some very flippant, and I've seen some ugly behavior at cons and in this industry, and so I don't want it to come across as flippant, because it is not. It's the kind of treatment of people is terrible. In fact, the crazy part about all this is that this is where I said ego comes in. Is that you have creators who are naturally inverted, or kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of odd personalities. And suddenly They are thrust into this, pseudo celebrity behavior. They're also writing comics about complete fantasy elements, and in many cases, superheroes. And it warps your brain. It If you're not cautious and you do not kind of keep your own ego and mentality in check, you set up a very strange personality for yourself. And I think this is, not to wade into all the rest, but this is your classic, what a lot of people in the industry have said about folks like Mark Wade. And I know a million things have been said about the online stuff and the thing with Richard Meyer and all that. Take all that out of it. I don't want to go with any of that. The Facebook rants that Mark does, none of that. Just get rid of all of that. The emails have been shared. That Nothing, and just talk about the person who would show up at cons and how that personality evolved over the last, say, 15 years, and especially the last 10 years, how that personality really kind of began to change and morph and evolve. And unfortunately, it's all very colored now, because if 5 years ago or even 2 years ago, if you were to talk to somebody inside the industry and you'd say, "Hey, what do you think about Mr. Wade's personality?" You would get egomaniac, um, does very, kind of very bizarre, temperamental. I think, in fact, I think that's exactly the word that I've heard consistently, is very temperamental, very arrogant, and mood can change in a flash. And just he can be very and very very controlling. I think is the other thing I've heard from the guy. Very very controlling. Um, and I think, and kind of like a lot of, this is an expression that's used to a lot of different comic creators, particularly the men. I don't think I've ever heard this about a female comic creator. It's always about the men. It's very kind of bluster personalities, where they're like, somebody tells them they suck, and they're like, "Oh, I'll kill you. I'll take you down. I'll throw you down a flight of stairs." That kind of, I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm turning into the Hulk. I'll throw you down. And that kind of, tough guy talk. That, I mean, if I don't like the term toxic masculinity, but if you ever, if I was forced to describe it, I would describe it as that. I think that tough guy kind of bluster is, toxic, dumb behavior. And that's what people have said. Now flash forward 2 years, and you have people who are picking sides. Either they're on the Richard Meyer side, or they're on the Mark Wade side, and so the whole conversation is now much more difficult. A guy who 2 years ago, I remember, had said, this guy's a complete, Mark Wade, this guy's a complete a-hole who, loses his temper and acts crazy. I mean, this is a colleague within the industry, an assistant editor. This was how he was described. Now, 2 years later, I'm having the same conversation. I'm like, "So how is this all going on?" And it's like, "Oh man, that Mark Wade is a great guy, and this Richard Meyer is a real jerk, and you know this is why we got to get fans like that out of the picture." And so it's like, because of this situation, it's polarized the views. Whereas in the past, it was, same person would describe him as just kind of a nut. So why, again, why does the business drive it this way? I do think the celebrity attention aspect is abnormal to a lot of people. I think they just don't get. It's just that it's not natural, and there's nobody to hold their hands through it and kind of teach them how it can work. And then on top of that, creative people in general just have a lot of different kind of things going on, and so reconciling that with the real world is tough. And I also think, I mean, it kind of goes hand in hand with the boss mentor, the lack of a, for better or worse, an authority figure, is that when, and this is true of all humans and all life, if somebody does something wrong, if somebody does bad behavior, um, it's like with raising children. You have a choice. You can step in and you can say, "Hey, don't do that. Don't light a fire in the living room. You're going to burn the house down." I mean, and whatever scale of punishment, whatever you kind of subscribe to, you can explain, you can punish, you can time out, you can spank, whatever you happen to subscribe to. But the other path you could take is just to go, "Well, they'll grow out of it," and just ignore it. Like, I've got a lot of things to do. I'm playing Gardenscape on my phone, and I don't have time to deal with this. And the matches aren't there. He doesn't know how to light matches anyway, so he'll be fine. And this is what the comic industry and a lot of entertainment industries are like, is bad behavior will crop up and will occur. And nobody is there to say, "Hey, you stop. you're fired, or you do that again and you are fired. Here, time for a little public shaming. You can't yell at this person like that. You can't walk into this con and then tell another creator you're going to flip the table over on him. You can't, when a fan comes up and says I don't like your work, you can't say I'm going to kill you and your mother. I mean, and none of these are these are things I have heard. If you're never told, hey, that's not acceptable, that's not a thing you can say no, then you're going to keep doing it. I mean, why not? You're a celebrity, right? You're a creator. You're crafting superhero stories that are read by some amount. You're not really sure, but some people. And if somebody bugs you, why not flip the table on them? Why not tell them you're gonna kill them? Why not you know have a few drinks and then kind of show that nice, attractive young woman that they just hired at the company to be an assistant there? Why not, put your hand on her leg and kind of rub it around? I mean, you're the boss, right? Why not? That's the problem. Is that nobody is saying, "Hey, I'll tell you why not," because that's wrong, and you're going to be fired. And so it creates it justifies the behavior. It keeps people doing it, and even worse, you get this warped kind of mentality in their mind of going, nobody's telling me to stop. I understand that's bad behavior, but nobody's telling me to stop, so I'm okay to do this. And out of kind of inner guilt, because some internal subconscious part of my mind knows this is wrong, I'm going to make a huge spectacle of myself in telling other people it's wrong, even though I'm doing the same behavior myself. And this is absolutely what is true of several creators who they're strident defenders of whether it's women, and they should be. By the way, you should be a strident defender of bad sexual misconduct. That's not okay. So yeah, defend those people, support, help them, don't let them get these things going on. But it often comes from a place of inner guilt. They know they're doing the wrong thing, but they're not being told no, so they're going to keep doing it. And inside, some subconscious thing is whispering in the ear, "This is wrong," and so that's going to come out in the work by telling other people it's wrong, even while you are deliberately getting a female colleague drunk so you could take advantage of her later, which is unfortunately an all too common story. So I don't know. That's my theory on it. That's what is going on. What do you think? Leave me a comment below. An ugly topic, but some people ask, and I think it's worth talking about. I would love to see a world where truly we don't have this kind of behavior going on, and we can just enjoy comics for what they are. I think that's what we all want to get to. Anyway, thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, share with a friend, all of those things, and follow me on Twitter at Comic Perch. Thanks for listening.